it's Indigo's Creations. So today we're going to be making a Kagome cosplay, and with that I'm going to be trying things that I've never done before with this costume. We did a video last time and it is a video of us shopping for the items for this costume. We did not get the shirt in this video, the last video, but we do have a shirt and I am adding things to this shirt because this is a cosplay on a budget, because we didn't feel like making everything from scratch, but I made pretty much everything from scratch except for the shirt and the shoes and the socks. But with that, I added the things to the shirt in the video, and I hope you guys love the costume and love this video. I did make a video of us shopping for everything. If you would like to check that out, I'll put it somewhere here. And I'm going to put all her stuff in the description below so you can see her in her costume and her videos and pictures and stuff on TikTok and Instagram. And I hope you guys love this video. See you guys around.
So these are the reference photos that I had printed off at the library since my printer is not working currently. We need front photos and back photos. Some of the items I did not list off are scissors, measuring tape, pencil to mark or chalk, and a ruler. If you need to pause it to look at the items that I have purchased or they have purchased, go ahead and pause it. These are her measurements. We're going to go ahead and unfold the fabric here, and we're going to figure out which direction we want the fabric to lay, because the way the fabric's made, we want the pleats to go the direction that it's stitched. It'll sit better. I'm measuring out the length from the hip down to the knee because that's how long she wants it, and I already marked it, and we're going to go ahead and cut it out and go from there. I'm also going to just pop in here real quick. If you hear my son in the background, I apologize. He's just watching TV in the other room. So right here I did 2 straight stitches after I folded the edge. It'll be the bottom edge of the skirt, and I want to make sure that that's done before I make the pleats, because it just makes it a little bit easier, and so you don't mess up the pleats when you go to iron it after you ironed it, and it just works better for me. If you want to do it a different way, you can. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is how I make the pleated skirts. So with the pleats, we ended up deciding that we wanted them about 3 inches to 3.5 inches wide. And I'm pinning them at least 3 or 4 times per pleat, so make sure you have a lot of pins. But they're 3 to 3.5 inches wide on both sides, so the back side and the front side. So we made it the measurement all the way around her waist to see how big the skirt needs to be, and then we did a little bit of math to make sure it was enough to also cover her back side a little bit better, because she's got a little booty, so we wanted to make sure it didn't show her booty when she was bending over and stuff, so we had to make sure we had a little bit of extra room, which is great. After we make all the pleats, we're going to have to figure out where the zipper sits, but we're going to have to iron everything first and decide from there, because I'm trying to do kind of an invisible zipper with pleats to make it kind of look hidden. But she originally decided to have the zipper on the side, but then she decided later, after she started wearing the skirt and everything, that she wanted it on the back. So if you see at the end of the video that the zipper is on the side, that's because this is before she made the decision to wear it in the back. I love making pleats. They're like my favorite thing because they're so neat and so straight and so like crisp and pretty. I don't know, I really like making pleats. And I did cut the skirt longer than we needed, just in case. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off some of the extra fabric and leave the actual length that we need. Because I did already measure and mark it, I'm just going to go ahead and cut as straight as possible, which I already measured. It is straight. I ended up folding it under because this will be where the invisible zipper starts. This side. Doesn't matter which side, whichever side you're more comfortable with. This is how big it was. So right here we're ironing the pleats, and I was originally ironing them with the pins, but then I realized my pins were plastic and not all metal like my other ones. So they were melting under the iron. Don't do that. This is not a good experience. So I'm just gonna, yeah, as you can see, the melted plastic was on the towel now. But I got it all off happily. You just let the iron be hot and rub it off on like a towel or a wet paper towel. I ended up picking out a piece of a pin here because it was stuck in one of the holes and I didn't realize I got it out. And I rubbed it off a little bit more and I fixed it. So we're gonna start ironing. And I end up going in the direction that I want the pleats to go in. This is before I sewed it, so I left the pins at the top. But at the bottom, I go ahead and take them out because I don't need them anymore. But keep the pins at the top of the skirt because then you still need to sew it. I pretty much use a straight stitch out of this whole thing. I believe I used a straight stitch out of the whole thing. Except for one. We'll get to that. That's a zigzag stitch. But for the rest of it, I use a straight stitch. So right here is the top of the skirt. We're going to straight stitch it all the way down. We ended up doing about an inch for the first stitch from the top. And then right next to that, more close to the top, I did a straight stitch. So I do at least 2. And you can hear my kid in the background of this video recording because I tried to. If you hear me sniffling, I have really bad allergies. This was before my allergies came in, so I was congested. So sorry about that. But I also take the pins out while I go, but not for the first few pleats. I leave the pins in, and here I go and start stitching it out, like take them out while I'm stitching. I've had bad habits of breaking needles sewing with the pins still in, but that's okay, not a big deal. But here's the second stitch, the top. To give us another straight stitch, and it goes all the way across the whole entire top. Which I love doing that because then, like, if your first stitch breaks while you're sewing on the waistband, you at least have some more support. I like to do at least 2 or 3 straight stitches at the top of a pleated skirt. Right here, we're going to go ahead and lay it all out and measure everything to make sure it's still the same measurements from before. And I want to see where I want the zipper to sit. I'm going to have to seam rip 2 of the areas that I've sewn down on the skirt for the zipper. I also do try the skirt on the mannequin quite a few times, or a lot of people call it a dress form, but she's 34.5 inches around the waist, and that's where I want the zipper to sit for more cutting and more excess. Like I said, I want to make sure it's cut at least a little bit extra than what I want because seam allowance. Here's the zipper. It is 7 inches long, and the color lime green. And I was just reading the directions, trying to make sure I got the correct zipper that I wanted, and I did. You take all that stuff off. You can sew with that stuff on. I don't. I'm very weird about it, but I'm just making sure. And yeah, just read your directions before you put the zipper on. But we're gonna put the zipper on first because I want to put the waistband on afterwards, because you want to be able to hide the top part of the zipper. Some people add the zipper on afterwards, which is fine. It's just your preference. But here I am seam ripping. I ended up using scissors because I couldn't find my seam ripper. That thing gets lost all the time. But right here I'm folding it and testing out what I want. And I want to fold that under because the zipper is going to sit inside, and I want to have the inside be invisible too because I don't want it to rub against her skin, because she has sensitive skin, so I don't want her skin being rubbed against a harsh fabric from the zipper. And I'm also marking where I want the bottom of the zipper to be sewn across and where I want it to sit. So I'm going to sew up the bottom of the skirt, and then I'm going to sew the zipper in. So I'm going to sew the 2 ends to the bottom and go from there. Like right here, I'm sewing the ends together to make it look like a fake pleat, kind of a hidden pleat, and then I'm going to stop right before that white line so I can place the zipper and start sewing the zipper in. And like I said, I've been... Oh, I didn't say that. Oh, I did say that in the intro. I'm trying new techniques, and this is a new technique for me. I've never done that before. Have had to add a fabric underneath the zipper and a fabric over the zipper to make for sensitive skin. So it's new to me, and I like how it turned out. I do end up fixing that wonky line at the top, but it is going to be hidden by the waistband, but I did fix it. But see where the under fabric, and it's done. I sewed the zipper in, and I like how it turned out. And that's where the fake pleat is. For a second there, my camera would not focus. I had to do it manually, which was crazy. But I love how the fake pleat popped in and it worked out perfectly. So I'm trying it on the dress form, making sure it's sitting right where she wants it. And my dress form's kind of broken, but I managed to fix it before I started working on this costume, and I wanted to make sure that everything was sitting properly and unzipping properly, and it did. And it zips so smooth, so happy. But there's the hidden pleat. I just love how the pleat looks. It looks so pretty. And after all the sewing, I didn't have to iron it again, which makes me happy. Right here, we are cutting out the waistband. I forgot to show the measuring. My camera died in the process of that. I'll be measuring it. But this is the waistband, and I'm going to iron it folded in half. And then I'm going to unfold it, and I'm going to fold the edges down about 1 inch each on the inside of the crease where I've originally folded. So I'm making it where I put it on the skirt and the edges are all folded in and ready to go once you pin it on and sew it. I made it extra long, so I will be trimming it. I always make everything a little long before I trim it. Trying to decide how far I want it, but I at least do like close to 1 inch. Probably 1/2 inch. No, it's 1 inch. I ended up doing 1 inch. I decided on 1 inch on the inside for the edge to be folded in. already love how it came out. I was just fixing some bubbles and creases before I continued. As you can see, I already marked where the center is. No, it's right where my hand was. There's a line. It does go away. So here I am getting ready to pin it on, which for me this is the most difficult part, is pinning it on and seeing how I want it to sit and where I want it to sit. I'm leaving a little bit of extra fabric on it. Oh, I forgot to show I sewed the edges. I sewed the edges together. But I ended up trimming in the zipper a little bit at the top, taking off a little bit of the extra zipper. But I want to make sure I have enough fabric hanging off the edge of the skirt to overlap each other with snaps. This is the first time I've ever had to add snaps on a skirt, but I wanted to make it easy for her to wear because she doesn't like buttons, and so I went with snaps. And she didn't like hooks either, so I was like, well, it probably would be best if I use snaps anyway, because I want to try something new on a skirt. I love how the snaps came out, and I don't like the hooks either, because the hooks can be a little bit of a hassle, and if you move wrong, they come undone, which happens a lot. So I make sure I bring it down past the first straight stitch. I bring it past there, at least a little bit past it, so we can make sure it sits properly. But you want to make sure your pleats are flat when you go to put this together and pin it down. And I know it's a little difficult. I don't like doing this part either. Like, if you do, power to you. It's not my favorite part of making your skirt, is doing the waistband. I decided to open it up and lay it out because it's all the same length, so I want to make sure I sit it in there properly. I do end up measuring later off camera, making sure everything's the same length all the way around, because I don't want it to sit wrong. I don't want to have this weird crease when I sew it together. So right here is where I have it all pinned together. It's all straight, it's all an even length, it's just creased because it's not sitting right on the dress form. So my dress form has a big gaping hole where the waist is. But here's what I was explaining. I'm going to sew it all the way around with one straight stitch. I don't remember if I did one or two. I think I might have did 2 straight stitches. I'm using really strong thread. Right now I'm using metal snaps, so I'm going to be making invisible snaps so in the fabric. So we're going to put it on the inside of the waistband and stick them in there on the dots where we want them to sit. I had to hold the fabric against each other and see where I want them to sit and how they would sit and be productive. I do not like this kit. I don't recommend getting it. Don't get it. It's at Walmart. It sucks. I prefer the metal snap kit, but they were out at Joann's and they were out at Walmart, so I ended up having to get this one. It's not the best one. I wouldn't recommend it. It gets stuck. Watch your fingers. Hammers are not fun smashing fingers. I did smash my finger and the other couple of snaps, but I don't have a rubber mallet anymore, so I have my metal hammer. And I end up like trying to pull it apart, and and I had to use scissors to pop it out. But I ended up doing that at least another time with this one, and then the other two on the other side. And then I end up straight stitching the seams closed all the way across. So I like how they sit. They came out nice, and they were a little difficult to get apart at first, but it does get easier after the next few times you like clip them back and forth. Keep using them and they'll be easier. Here's the straight stitch down the seam that I did on the first one, and then the other one I end up folding it inside and sewing the straight stitch down the seam too. I'm gonna cut off all those extra little strands later. I do leave them usually because then I can, like, I don't know, sometimes I can just burn them off, but I don't when I'm making something for someone else, a costume. I burn them off on mine, but I just cut them off and then I light it with the lighter a little bit to seal it off a little bit, but I don't use a lighter on this one. Didn't have to. I love these little tiny scissors. They get so close to the fabric where I can cut them off, the little stray hairs of thread off. It is so nice. I have a smaller set of scissors, it's just they hurt my fingers, so I don't use them. So right here is what the skirt looks like on the mannequin. With the invisible zipper, the snaps, and we're going to start on the shirt here shortly. They ended up picking up a shirt at Valley Thrift in Dayton, Ohio. I can leave a link. They're a great place to shop if you are looking for cheap clothes that are used, kind of like a Goodwill, but they're better. They have a customer day on Mondays, which means like 25-50% off. But this is what the skirt looks like on her. She loves it. I'm so happy. But right here for the shirt, I already pre-cut the triangle out of excess fabric, and I already made the bow piece out of the ribbon. I forgot to record that. My camera was like not working that day. But the shirt is this really soft knitted fabric, and she really liked it, so she picked it out. And she wanted something soft, so I think that works out. It came out really nice. I ended up cutting some wristbands, and I made sure, I don't remember what the measurements are, but I made sure they were even all the way across and evenly wide. And I cut them straight. And here's the bias tape. It is about an inch or something. It'll be in the description below, I promise. But I put it down the center, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted it down the center and sit perfectly, because I'm going to sew them on, and then I'm going to sew the edges after I iron everything and make sure everything fits properly. I sprained my finger somehow. I don't know. My finger was dislocated, so I had to put a splint on it. And this piece is about 6 inches. I ended up cutting it down to at least like 4. But this is the little piece that goes around the red ribbon and the end of the everything. The little piece that slides on. Straight stitching the wristbands or the edges to make sure they're nice and even, making it look really nice before I end up folding it and bringing it back. Folding it in half and straight stitching it all the way down, and then I'm going to flip it right side out, inside out. I'm going to iron it flat, and then I'm going to sew on the white bias tape. I'm just doing a small small straight stitch on the edge. And doing it this way is new for me too, because I've never made the cuffs for Kagome this way. I wanted to make it where it was kind of hidden. It looks really nice, and I'm gonna iron it, and then I'm gonna sew on the white bias tape down the center. I had to make sure I measured and marked it. I did mark it with the pencil where I wanted it, but you can't really see it on camera. I do iron the bias tape first because I don't want it to like shape weird. I want it to stay center to the fabric, and then I just sew it on. And here I am sewing on the bias tape. I at least do 2 straight stitches close to the edge so it kind of looks invisible. And I did not pin it on. It's hard to pin bias tape on like this because it can wrinkle and it won't be straight anymore. It's very difficult for me, so I hold it in place. I have it marked where I want the edge of the bias tape to sit, so I already have it marked so it doesn't go anywhere. I made it easier for myself, but just a straight stitch this way, and then on the other side, close to the edge, a straight stitch. The top thread is white, the bottom thread is green. I do thread match everything. I do fold the edge of the bias tape on the inside, and now I'm going to go ahead. I already flipped the threads out. They're both green on the top and the bottom, and I'm going to straight stitch the edge on both sides of the cuffs. And I already marked how straight I want it to be and where I want it to sit. I usually have like a magnet beside my foot on the sewing machine so my fabric doesn't move while I'm sewing it. I do put a magnet there because I have shaky hands and I like my lines straight. I'm weird. Here I'm sewing the cuffs together. I ended up pushing the fabric on the inside of each other, so there's no fabric overlap on the outside. They're overlapped on the inside, and I just straight stitch it all the way down, but you have to lift the end that you're not sewing up so you don't accidentally sew it. This is where my sewing machine got jammed for a second. There was still a piece of thread hanging off, and it got caught on the inside of my sewing machine, so it pulled right out. When I pulled the fabric apart, it was a mess, but I figured it out. I fixed it. Trial and error. It happens. And right here is the little like collar piece that I was talking about. I ended up straight stitching it together. I did the little off camera. I did the little bias tape too. I did all of that off camera. I should have showed it. I completely forgot. I was in the zone. But I usually don't use that little fabric hook clip cut thingy. I don't know. I don't usually use it, but I do end up sewing the straight stitch on both ends to make sure it looks really nice and neat, and then I flip it inside out and I sew the seams together and flip it right side out, and then it's ready to go. It's basically the same thing I did with the cuffs. I did with this, but a smaller version, and it is cut in kind of like a triangular shape. And here I am flipping it right side out. It was difficult. I almost ended up having to grab some pliers because it's such a tiny little piece. I tried scissors, but I was afraid to cut it, so I put them down. It was a little difficult. It's a little struggle. I would recommend like a backside of a pencil or some pliers and flip it through, or like a broken paintbrush handle, shove it through. See how it's like a triangular shape? It has a slight angle to it when it's bigger and smaller on the other end. It kind of tapers. So that's it. I did end up making another one, a bigger one, because that one I didn't like the size. So right here we're measuring the neck. I call it a collar, or the bandana. The bandana. We're cutting it. We're gonna cut it in kind of an oval shape to fit around the neck and around the shape of the collar. And I marked it and I measured it, and I ended up trimming a little bit more off because I didn't cut it wide enough like I wanted. You see that straight line down the side there? That right there is where I need to stop cutting. It was right next to that line because I folded it in half, ironed it, and made that crease right there for myself. So remember, don't go past that. So pretty much I'm making this shape is what I want. So I made a little template, sort of. I don't really use patterns, but I use like small version templates. kind of get an idea. I can write it down on paper, but I don't really. Sometimes I have to visualize it. Right here, we're going to cut the curves with little tiny snips of triangles off. I'm going to fold it in half to make it easier. And I'm going to cut them so when we sew that edge, it doesn't like crinkle up when you go to roll the edge into a nice clean edge. And it sews so smooth and not all crinkled. So I'm going to cut these little pieces out, and then I'm going to get ready to start sewing. I don't know what this is exactly called, but I use this with a lot of the costumes I make because I don't like that look of like it rolling on itself and crinkling up and not being a nice, neat, crisp line, and it bothers me. I mark how I wanted it folded. This is what it looks like before I start sewing it. And I'm going to go ahead and do a straight stitch all the way around these curves. Just going to make sure you fold it on the process, or you can pin it before you do it. But usually I do better when I don't pin it because I already know where I need it to sit, and I already mark it and I like iron it sort of. And I just roll it into place and go from there. I do 2 straight stitches. So I did the one close to the edge, and now I'm doing the second one to flatten it out. And then I do end up ironing it off camera to make it nice and crisp and light, like real flat. Because you can see it's like crinkling up. It's not crinkled once I'm done ironing it. That's just where the needle goes through the thread. I had to replace my needle because my needle was dull at this point. And now I have a sharper needle. And sometimes you have to do that. Switch your needles out. Make sure you have extras for sure. Because there's those moments where they accidentally break, or they are too dull and they start breaking the fabric and breaking your threads, and it's just a mess. And I prefer switching them out after a certain point. But yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the other edge all the way around. Alright, now I'm folding the other edge to place and decide where I want it to sit, and I'll start sewing. 2 straight stitches, once again, one real close to the edge, the first one, and then do the second straight stitch closer to the outer edge.
So I'm popping in real quick. My camera died in the process of sewing on the bias tape to the, it's not a cape, but it's like the color slash, I don't know what to call that, bandana thing. I was supposed to be recording and my camera did not do what I asked. I should have checked it before I started sewing, but I didn't because I thought it was still recording. So I'm sorry about that, guys, but I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video.
So I'm going to sew them together. I put it back on the mannequin, figured out where I wanted to sit, and now I'm going to sew them, the edges, the point together before I add the red fabric, and then the little thing that I made to hold the red fabric on the ribbon and on the edge of that to make it look really nice. But I did that, and then I also ended up sewing the triangle on. That's where I used the zigzag stitch, because I did the zigzag stitch down the sides of the triangle to make it really nice and not fray, because I tried to straight stitch and it just wasn't working out. So I zigzag stitched it and made a nice line, and then I end up sewing that on too. But I do like a hidden stitch to sew it on with the straight stitch. I ended up straight stitching over top a stitch I already did to make it look like there was not an extra stitch, if that makes sense. But I'm doing that on this too. I'm sewing on top of a stitch that I've already sewn, and I'm going to sew it in place. And I do end up like doing a straight stitch down the center of the triangle here where I'm sewing now to make it look really nice and not move while you're wearing it, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that quite makes sense. Right here, I end up sewing the red fabric on, and later I decided off camera to sew the red fabric onto the thing first and then sew it on, but I did that all off on camera. I changed my mind. I know, I'm sorry, but it looks better. But I did sew it on, and then I ended up sewing on the handkerchief. It's not a handkerchief. What is that? Bandana thing? The thing that sits on top of the shoulders. I ended up sewing it together, making one piece. This is where I changed my mind off camera and fixed it. Now here's the zigzag stitch I ended up doing. I tried doing like a fold to see, and I think I'm going to do a straight stitch at the top all the way across to make it look nice and neat before I add the white fabric. Oh, nope, this is right after that, I guess. This is where I did the zigzag stitch. I already did the straight stitch at the top, as you can see. But now I tried rolling it, and it just was not going to work. I tried ironing it too, and it just didn't work off camera. So I changed my mind. Zigzag stitch all the way up and down because you're not going to see it. So both sides. I already marked and decided where I wanted the bias tape to sit. I put it on the mannequin, set it underneath the little thing that I was just talking about, and right here I'm changing out the thread, and I'd go really fast with switching the thread out. I don't know how I managed to do that so smoothly, but I did. I already marked it, decided, measured everything, figured out where I wanted it to sit, and I do 2 straight stitches like I did with the cuff. And it came out really nice. I love it. Off camera, I picked where I wanted it to sit on the shirt, and now I'm straight stitching it all the way down. Green thread on top, white thread underneath to make it look really nice. Or am I using white thread at the top? Nope, it's green thread on top and white thread underneath, so you can't see it on the outside. And you won't even see the green thread on the top, which is fine. Basically going to be vanished anywhere. And I do that on both sides of this little triangle, and then I do a bottom secure stitch right here. I make sure it sits properly and flat, and I did pin this part down because this was very difficult. Very stretchy fabric, very soft, and it's very difficult to make it sit properly, so I tried very hard to make it look good and sit right and be comfortable, because I want it to be comfortable. The thread that I'm using is so soft and gentle to the skin. I'm just happy that I can make these outfits to the specifications of what people are comfortable with, because some of it's a little bit of cotton, some of it's not actual like full cotton, and I love that she wanted gentle soft fabrics because it gives me something new to work with. I've never worked with this kind of fabric, so it's new and I love it. I love like learning new things. This is what it looks like before I sew the rest on. It looks really nice. I need to iron it, but I'm going to go ahead and set it on top to see where I want it to sit. This is what it looks like before I set it all together. Like I said, I did like redo the whole bottom part. See how it sits so perfect? It sits so nice. So I'm just going to sew the front part down, because when she goes to wear the actual costume, I want the back to move however the way she wants it to sit. I'm not going to sew the back down. I'm just going to sew the front half where the triangle sits and where the red is, and I'm already pinning it. I'm going to mark where I want to start the stitch, and I'm going to make it invisible, like I said earlier, and go down a stitch that I've already made previously. And I do end up ironing all of this later. But I just want the stitches to look very consistent and very nice and sit down very flat and pretty. I'm so excited for this. So I did a lot of adjusting and moving around and everything, but this is what it would look like on the back. I did end up ironing the edges down because they were curling outward, and we didn't want that, so we needed to iron it where it curls inward. I can fix that later after we sew everything on. I have to like sit everything properly, try to make sure it's symmetrical and even, and figure out how I want it to actually sit before I start sewing, because I want to make sure it's perfect before I start sewing. A lot of trial and error, but this is before I sew it. Now we're going to go ahead and get started and sew it. And so this is what it looks like. Those are the seams that I'm going to be sewing on, that I pointed out, those little straight stitches right there. And so I already split the thread. It's both white threads. I'm trying to line my needle up right. I took that under piece out because you want the fabric to move smooth underneath so you can move it around, kind of like when you sew a cuff on. And gonna line that needle up perfectly. You see where the bias tape is sticking up? I do fix that later. I didn't catch it until after I started sewing this part, and I caught it, I fixed it. It no longer pops up like that. I did fix it. But you have to line it up perfectly. It's very hard to line up a stitch perfectly. But I did it. I just realized that I did not record sewing off the cuffs. So the cuffs were pretty easy. It's basically the same thing. Sewing on the edge and doing it right on the white bias tape and making sure the lines met up all the way around. And I made sure that the fabric was folded and it like puffed up around. I would have to, next time I will record it. I am so sorry that I did not record that. I just realized I did not record that. I thought I did right after this, but I did not. I apologize. Alrighty, this is the end of the video. I hope everybody loved the video. Please leave a like or comments and questions and concerns down below. Please don't forget to click that bell to receive every notification of every single video. Please subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful time and enjoying the end of the video. Bye, guys!